greatest minds on earth. Speaking of greatest minds on earth, I've been very privileged to speak to so many incredible people, and the field that I'm in has afforded me that opportunity. And still, I get the most feedback on a conversation that I had with the next gentleman. There's just something magical about our conversation. I get people messaging me all the time. And of course, that's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Dr. Joe Vitale, who has reached so many people internationally for so long. Just the other day, I saw a video of people in Iran that were talking about Dr. Joe Vitale. I mean, when we talk about international impact, Denis Waitley, Dr. Joe Vitale, Forbes Riley, these are truly the preeminent thought leaders of our time that are alive today. And Denis, I know that you were, of course, featured in The Secret along with Dr. Joe Vitale. So we're doing sort of a mini Secret reunion, if we will, because I know a lot of your friends from that blockbuster hit are also part of this incredible tour. But real quick, just what are some general thoughts on Dr. Joe Vitale before we bring him in? Denis, please.
Well, in fact, Joe is somebody I've learned a lot from. It's amazing that he and I have not spent more time together, because I've spent a lot of time with him, watching his videos, getting in on his podcast. So I've known Joe by, shall we say, by proxy. And what an honor it is for me to finally be able to chat with him in person. That, as Forbes said, what a wonderful opportunity through Zoom, because we should have intersected many years ago. But Joe was one of the principals in The Secret. In fact, he really knows more about the law of attraction than nearly anyone. And so I did a cameo in The Secret, and he was one of the main teachers in The Secret. And that's the difference. He's one of the principals in The Secret. I happen to be in it and be brought along with the others. But I'm so excited to chat with him, because his power and his understanding of the energy of the world and what the law of attraction really is profound and right down the center of the bullseye. So I can hardly wait. I'm excited for Joe to come
Denis, your modesty is so awe-inspiring. And in fact, in the spirit of full transparency, Forbes Riley and I had a conversation last night on the phone, and she asked me, she said, Mo, what's your biggest takeaway from Denis Waitley? And I was actually very impressed by that question, Forbes, because that's a fantastic question to ask people. And my answer was Denis's incredible modesty and humility. In my opinion, it was much more than a cameo. I think that what you contributed to that film was very important. But I digress from that. Let's go ahead and now introduce Dr. Joe Vitale, who's live and direct with us here on the New Psychology of Winning tour. Dr. Joe Vitale, Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you, and how excited are you? And what are you feeling right now after hearing those words from Denis Waitley about you? Dr. Joe, please.
I'm wondering who he's talking about. I'm listening to him, this legend, this icon, this best-selling author who has influenced so many people for decades, since the last century. And he's saying these things about me. And honestly, I started to cry. Then I'd wipe my tears. And then I'm thinking, I don't even belong here. And then I'm thinking, what am I going to talk to this man about? Because I'm in awe of him. And I've been rereading the book that just came out, The New Psychology of Winning, and I'm in awe of it. There's such a conversational charm. There's such wisdom in it. It's updated with all of the things that were in the original book from almost 30 years ago. What am I doing here?
What you're doing here, Joe, is you're able to take complex information and deliver it to people in a way that they not only understand it, but they take it to heart, because you've been able to transmit this back and forth. And I really mean that sincerely. I have watched your videos. I've been watching you for years, and I've been saying, now there's someone that I can learn from. And I mean that sincerely. You know, I'm an introvert, there's no question. And I'm not good at selling myself. I understand that. I have a great face for radio. So that's why I'm more audio. Hardly anyone knows me by sight, which is a good thing, because I can lead a private life. But you're one of the ones, and the other ones are coming on too, that I classify as someone who's had a tremendous impact on me. And I put you at the top. We were together at that lunch on some of the Beyond the Secret type of films that were coming out. And you were sitting right there in the center of the luncheon. And I wanted so much to say, Joe, why don't we take a little time and go aside and just chat for a while. We didn't have the opportunity then, but we have it now. So I'm so blessed to be on the call with you today, Joe, as well.
Dennis, I don't even know what to say. I am gonna say something that I don't usually have to stumble for words here, but here I am trying to find my path to speak to this legend. The movie premiere that we were at in Los Angeles, which is the one and only time that I've seen you, you came up to me afterwards, and we were on the stairwell by the seats, and you shook my hand, and you said, I didn't know what this movie was going to be like, but I'm glad I'm in it because I'm in it with you.
I remember.
I was fried. I was fried. I don't even know that I said anything. I might have said thank you. I hope I said thank you. And I kept thinking, we didn't even get a photo. And for the next 2 years, I regretted not getting a photo with you, besides not sitting down and actually talking to you for any length of time. And then it was only a couple of weeks ago that a photo from that moment was sent to me. The woman that was standing there beside you and me apparently was taking photos. I didn't even know it. I was lost in your gaze, your handshake, and what you were saying to me. And so it was a miracle that we were there. It was a miracle to me that you said those nice things to me. It was a miracle that a photograph was taken that surfaced 2 years later. And then this thing is being put on, this appreciation of you and your work, and I'm invited to be here. For me, we live in this magical universe that most of us take for granted. And every now and then there is something that wallops us on the side of the head and we go, oh yeah, this is a pretty cool place. And it's moments like when I met you and you said the nice thing. It's moments when I find out that there was a photo later, and it's moments like this very one right now when you're saying things that I can't even compute. But thank you. Thank you.
No, it's the people you meet along the way, Joe, and it's success by association and affiliation. You know them by the people they hang around. Remember, Charlie Tremendous Jones said, the books you read, the people you meet, what you listen to. You become that to which you're most exposed. And you're better than anyone saying thoughts become things, because for men and women, they had to imagine it before it ever became a reality, because only the creator of the universe is able to put all the beauty together. But we have to imagine it before it becomes a reality. And as I said, you've been one of the people who have been able to articulate that in a way that people take it to heart, get it inside, and make it happen. So I met Rhonda Byrne before The Secret came out. I met her in Sydney, Australia, and she was going to do a one-time video a television program called The Secret. As you and I both remember, she was a television personality in Australia and Sydney, and her daughter Sky had given her The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, and she was really into the law of attraction, and she thought that one television show could create vibrations and energy throughout the universe so that everyone in the world at one time could feel it. The problem was the time zones. And we're very fortunate. We have people from Australia and people from Kuwait and different parts of the world who are on the call here at different times, thanks to technology. But at the time, she decided to do the video instead. And so I agreed to be in it because of the other people who were already agreeing to be in it. And so we do have success by association. We come out of the same river. And I feel that I'm part of the river that flows to the sea, and I use other people's material. I try to give people credit as often as I can. Sometimes I forget, because a lot of it is Chinese or ancient wisdom. It comes from the scriptures, the Old and New Testament. It comes from all over the world. But I have to say, this is an honor for me. And I want to hear more, though, from you about your feeling about what winning is today. We know what I feel about winning, but I want to know what winning means to you today.
Well, I have questions for you too, so I hope we can have a little ping pong here. We can go back and forth, because as I was reading your book, The New Psychology of Winning, I actually made some notes of things I wanted to ask you. For me, winning has gone beyond what it was at one point. Early on in my career, because I was homeless at one point, and then I was in poverty for a good 10 years, winning was all about trying to make the bottom line work, all about getting published and getting paid for the publication, because I wanted to be an author, and that was my driving image, it was my driving passion, and I was going for it. It just was not an overnight success. But as that success started to come in and I started to enjoy it, wallow in it, share it, and go beyond it, there was more of a spirituality that came into my life. And so for me, winning is more of the balance of the spiritual and the material. One of my books is called The Awakened Millionaire. And it's coming from the idea that we don't want to be just spiritual. There's a spiritual snobbery where a lot of people say, well, I don't need money. I don't want money. I'm just going to live by whatever they think God is. But then there's the other half where people go, I'm not spiritual. I don't even know what spiritual is, but I want money. And their favorite sign is the dollar sign. And what I'm saying is neither one of those is healthy. Both of those are unbalanced. And we need an integration where we appreciate and use and leverage and are led by a combination of both. And so for me today, winning is that integration. Winning is knowing I am a spiritual being in a human body, having a very human experience. To the best of my ability, I want to tap into my spirituality, whatever my individual guidance is, and live from it. So instead of being driven where the more I get published, the more I win, I'm more driven by the more I listen to my inner orders from the divine, if you will, from God, if you will, from the cosmos, if you will, and follow that, the more I win. So it's more of a synthesis for me today. Winning is a combination. It's not just the outer. It's not just the goalpost. It's not a home run. It's not a publishing deal. It could be part of it, but it's also the esoteric spiritual part. And I guess that's how I would answer it today.
Well, that's a good answer. In fact, I wish I would have written that in the book.
Well, I guess there's going to be a volume 2 to the additional new psychology of winning, something like that. Now, listen, I want to take turns here. I want to ask you a question. And I don't know that you've been asked this before, but I'm reading your book and certain things leap out. One was that you had been with Viktor Frankl at one point. And Viktor Frankl wrote one of the greatest books of all time. It's on the shelf with, Man's Search for Meaning. And I just recently reread it again, thinking, what a masterpiece. And what I want to know is, what was he like in person? I've met enough authors in my life that most of the time I was disappointed. But I wasn't disappointed with you, and hopefully you weren't disappointed with me when we met. But what about Viktor Frankl? Did he live? Did he walk his talk? Was there anything that stood out? Any story that comes to mind, if you don't mind my asking?
Absolutely. I was fortunate to be introduced to him by Dr. Jonas Salk. So I was working for Jonas Salk, raising money for the polio days back in the 1960s. And Jonas Salk introduced me to Abraham Maslow, William Glasser, and some of the great thought leaders of those times. And he also introduced me to Viktor Frankl, who was a visiting professor at United States International University. So Frankl came over well after the Holocaust, well after World War II, and was teaching a class on purpose, the purpose behind the purpose, and why you give life meaning with your purpose, your big why. And I was so impressed with him because he was very humble. He was very well-spoken, very quiet. He was talking about Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag. He was talking about the giving up your freedom and what it means. And what impressed me most about him is he said, there should be a statue of responsibility. A good place might be on Alcatraz. And I said, why Alcatraz? And he said, that's a rusting reminder of lost freedom. He said, listen. He said, hear me out. The Statue of Liberty stands on Ellis Island in Battery Park, and she's beautiful. The French gave her to us. She has a torch in one hand and a tablet in the other. And at the bottom are chains. Bring me your tired and hungry, and come on into this country. You're free to choose, free to win, free to lose, depending on your role models on your knowledge and your actions. And therefore, on the other harbor, there should be another lady, and she would have an eagle in one hand, symbolizing flying free to be all we can be. Whatever feels good, just do it, baby. But in the other hand, she has a baby, which symbolizes our responsibility to the generations that follow. The eagle, fly free, the baby, take care of the next generation. He said she could face out the Golden Gate Bridge, and she would be reminding us that whatever you choose to do in your life, you live with the consequence or reward of those choices. So he, in effect, was using the law of attraction as the law of cause and effect.
Hmm.
And he said one other thing, Joe, that was just so profound. He said, in the Holocaust, in Auschwitz and Dachau, if you took your last piece of bread, your last piece, and shared it, thereby taking responsibility for another life as well as your own, you would live longer than if you ate your last piece of bread yourself to sustain only you. He said, so your why should be to make the world better, to help other people, and thereby you have a responsibility to stay alive. And I think one of my greatest lessons from him is my why has to be big enough to want to live long enough to help as many people as I can achieve their own goals according to their own value. So he was the real thing. And I learned more from him. You know, the statue of responsibility has tried to be put in an essay and tried to be built, but I wish it could stand on Alcatraz. It will never be built, but it's always there in my mind as a virtual statue of responsibility.
Oh my God, I'm so glad I asked, because I hadn't heard those stories. And the feeling of giving away the last bite of the bread and extending your own life because of that giving is incredibly profound. I don't I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, I think, you know, I think you and I have both tapped into it in our own way. And so we come from different perspectives. We both had tragedies. And, you know, this is true for many thought leaders. You know, we didn't start with a silver spoon. I mean, we didn't start with somebody handing us, you know, $50,000 or whatever, or maybe we got a break, and we all get a break, but you have to be open to it. So when you describe the law of attraction and the universe, I like the fact that being tuned in, being able to be aware enough of what it is you want to do and want to be, and have your why focused enough that you will automatically see those opportunities because of your awareness of here's the opportunity. I wouldn't have noticed it had I not been ready for it, had I not been looking for it, anticipating it. So opportunities pass us by every day, but it's only when your awareness, your preparedness, your training, what you've been through. And the last thing there is, I think you have to taste bitter to taste sweet. And I finally realized that when I've had my health challenges, that had I not gone through what I've been through these last couple of years, I wouldn't have known how beautiful, precious all my senses are, and how wonderful it is to be alive. I've been taking these things for granted as just being there as I've rushed through life trying to get to some ethereal, shall we say, place on the desert, which is really a mirage. The success is a mirage because you live successfully, but you can never reach this pinnacle because tomorrow something else happens. But Joe, I want to put the ping pong ball back to you,
All
because
right.
I want to draw out of you some more, because I want to take some more notes.
Okay.
So tell me some things about what you think people can do today to take advantage of their awareness and advantage of what they have inside to bring out the best from within.
I think the very first thing is to realize they have choice. I think that's where free will comes in. We have an easier ride through life when we say yes to the opportunities, to the intuitions, to the inspirations, to what appear to be uncanny synchronicities, but we can also say no to those. We're allowed to say no. We can receive an idea for a business, a product, a book, whatever it happens to be, and we can say, no, thanks, I don't really feel like doing it. That's our choice. But what I've learned from my personal experience is when we don't follow the yes thread, we end up having more of a rocky road through life. We end up being unhappy. We end up being in struggle. We end up being unhealthy very often because we played the comfort card and we're staying over there on the safe side of the street. And I think the juice of life, the thrill of life, the success of life, the winning, if you will, of life comes from saying yes. Now, saying yes doesn't mean necessarily that everything's just got to open up and you're got to slide to home base. It's not going to be like that. I know that even though I said yes to what I felt was a divine calling for me to be an author and to write books that would make a difference, that would help people, it was not an overnight success. We're talking about decades of fine-tuning my skills and being persistent in writing virtually every day and persistent in sending out, back before the internet, manila envelopes to publishers and waiting weeks to months to get my rejection letter, then going through the devastating experience of rebuilding my self-esteem so I can send the same manuscript out again. But I said yes. And because I said yes, eventually there was the first home run. You know, the first publication for me was 1984. The next one wasn't for another 10 years. But I was trying and I was saying yes and I was doing it. I think the first thing for people to realize is that their life will be easier and juicier, more gusto to it when they say yes to the things that they want to do anyway. There's things inside of them gnawing at them, knocking at them, teasing them. They're thinking about writing a song. They're thinking about being a painter. They're thinking about opening up a cupcake bakery of some sort. Whatever it is for each individual person, there is something there. Most of us deny it. We suppress it. We rationalize not doing it. But I have found that this is where it all begins, by saying yes to it. And then I would say the follow-up, and because I can go on forever talking about this kind of stuff, which is why I've written 80 books. I just go on forever talking about all this. But the next thing would be to state an intention. So I would say the very first thing is to pay attention to what is coming up within you, which I think is your spiritual calling, and say yes to it. And then the second thing is to state an intention that I am going to do this, because intentions align your body and mind and all of your energies and even send a signal to the universe that this is where I want to go. And your brain takes it on as a target, and pretty much everything else not related to it falls away. And you end up being pinpointed. You have a rifle shot to go for whatever the thing is that you said yes. So I would begin by saying, say yes to what's bubbling up, and then state an intention that you're going to do it. And I guess the third thing I would say, and I'm ad-libbing all of this, is frickin' take action. The movie The Secret, you've heard this too, it got a lot of criticism because people thought it was just magical thinking. Yet, I am in the movie saying you have to take action. I actually look at the camera and say, it's your job to take action. And a lot of people gloss over that. It's like, well, we don't want to hear that part. But I've learned, as you know, you have to take action. I mentioned I've written 80 books. You don't sit and visualize and have 80 books appear. You sit, visualize, and then start writing. I'm a musician. I have 15 albums. You don't just think about music or visualize it and get into that feel-good pocket, but not do anything. At some point, you have to get up and go into the studio and record. So I would say the third thing would be action. And, you know, I can go on forever from there. What do you think? What would you add to that?
Well, you know, as I say, there's a reason why you're successful, and it's because you're able to articulate it directly, straight across, without a script, without it being, shall we say, scripted. It comes from within. What I would add is that there's no app that you can put on your smartphone. There's no formula. There's not an app. It is not overnight. I think you need to dust off your childhood is one thing. What I've been able to do is have people dust off their childhood, age 5 to 15. So what did you love to do when you were a little kid? Why? What really turned you on? What turned you on in school? What turned you on, more importantly, after school? What turns you on in the evening? What turns you on in weekends? And as you've grown older through the years, what are your hobbies? Is it a hobby or is it a passion? Is it something that's subdued because you needed the money? Did we take the first job and did the first job work into a career? Why are you doing what you're doing now? Is it for the money? Is it because you're stuck there when the kids are grown, when things are better, when things get better? No. You need to look inside and take the deep dive. Dust off your childhood, dust off your teenage years, dust off your weekends. Take a long walk. Meditate, find out what it is inside that turns that Olympic torch on and really turns you on. Because if you'll chase your passion and not your pension, if you'll go after what really drives you, motivation is motive in action within. And motivation is defined as an inner force that compels behavior. And I think you and I have been compelled now. We talk about an overnight success, which is really interesting because I was a military pilot until I was in my late 20s, almost 30. So here I am, nearly 30 with 4 children already. So 4 kids, 30 years old, military establishment, ex-pilot, no other training other than a boyhood passion to talk, to listen, phonograph, radio, no TV, only books and radio. Phonographic words mean important to me when they're spoken and I remember them. So I go and it's not till I'm 33 do I do this a little bit as a hobby. It's not till I'm 43 that I even have my first success. I'm 43 years old before the psychology of winning even anyone recorded. So Joe, as Zig would tell us, how did you do, Zig? He said, I was a really good salesman. I sold my car, sold my furniture. I nearly had to sell my house before I could have anyone pay me to do what I do. So I gave at least 500 talks to women's clubs, Kiwanis, Rotary, Optimist, anyone that would listen. I even bought them lunch. So for 10 years, I spoke for nothing, $100, $200, $500. So instead of writing a best-selling book, and then getting a big fee, I had to stair step my way for 10 years from 33 to 43 and finally have a program that brought me speaking engagements. But for the most of those 10 years, I was working my way up with Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and the other speakers who were being paid very little for what we were trying to talk about. And the other thing is, don't be a clone of somebody else. I don't have the voice of Earl Nightingale. I don't have the drama of Tony Robbins. I don't have the electricity appearance. I talk more like Pat Boone, who does these commercials now. Pat Boone, the old singer, I have a very level, a very quiet voice, not dynamic. So don't try to put yourself into another person's uniform. Be authentically you. And you don't have to be like them in order to be successful in your own profession. So be uniquely you, dust off your childhood, and listen to that voice inside. You did, Joe, listen to it from the very beginning. And it may have taken you and I a long time, but at least we've ended up doing what we always wanted to do, even since we were little children.
And the thing to point out to people that might be watching is that we were doing what we wanted to do all along the way.
Right.
So in other words, yes,
that's so important. I had a UPS driver, he drove up. I try to help everyone who comes by because I treat everyone as equal. I really do. That's not just a saying. So he said, can I call you Dennis? And I said, of course, you're bringing packages from Amazon all the time. He said, I've always wanted to be a rock star. I said, great. So what are you look really about 23, 24? You still got time, So where are you playing and singing now? Oh, no, I'm driving this truck. I said, no, I know. We're all driving our truck to put food on the table, but where are you singing? He said, well, in the shower. I said, no, that's not good enough. You need to be singing in front of anyone who will listen to you with the group that you're bringing every Saturday, every time. He said, no, we just have a new baby. I said, no, I understand that. I understand that those things get into what you must be doing now, what you want to be doing in the future, because the future is being created by what the action you're taking every day. So you got to be doing it now. And he said, wow. So I said, just go out and present yourself to anyone who will listen and hone your skills. And when people applaud, find out why. What was it about your presentation? What is it about you that is different? And I think, Joe, it's so important. You really have to be prepared. You can't just have a pet rock or a new app or something that'll get you rich overnight. It just doesn't happen. Even the lotto, when you win it, goes very quickly. Usually in about the first 6 months to 3 years is when you go through the lotto money. Easy come, easy go. When you've got skin in the game, you're on your way.
All pure wisdom there. I have a question for you, Dennis. What do you say to the critics and the skeptics of whether it's The Secret or your books, my books, or self-help and self-improvement in general? We both know that there's people out there that say that stuff is nonsense. I can tell you, when I was broke and struggling, I was reading the self-improvement books. And I remember reading, I don't know if it was Joseph Murphy or one of the other great ones in the metaphysical area. And I told my landlord at the time, and he said, "You believe that BS?" And I remember thinking, I did believe that BS, but I was shocked that there were people out there who didn't. And then, of course, as time went on and I get published, I appear in the movie The Secret, and all this other stuff takes place, I start to hear from the naysayers, from the skeptics, from the critics. What do you say to them?
Well, I've had my share of that. In fact, I've traveled to 103 countries and 600 cities. And everywhere I go, if I don't believe the way they do, then they won't listen to me. In other words, I get turned off in their minds if I don't say things that are congruent with their belief system. So it's very difficult to penetrate people whose minds have been made up, and whether they're believers in a certain section of their religious belief, or whether they're totally irreligious and are just poo-pooing me because I'm a positive thinking Pollyanna. I say to them that the placebo effect is good enough for me. Placebo in Latin means I shall please. And the placebo effect is being studied in Harvard University right now. They have a placebo division of Harvard. And when you actually believe something to be true, as you and I both know, not only does it become electrical and sensory, but it also becomes biochemical. It becomes a chemistry response within your own body. And so there's a biochemical response to what our thoughts do, and there's a pharmacy inside. So I believe that the edge in life, no matter how you say it, you get the finest medical care, you get the finest knowledge, you get the finest books that you read, and you superimpose on top of that an attitude of optimism, which is the biology of hope. And it has been proven scientifically that the biology of hope releases the chemicals that will keep you healthier if you're an optimist than if you're a pessimist. So that alone gives me enough to say to the naysayers that it works for me. And also, Joe, I had a long talk with Billy Graham. Now, Billy Graham is an individual who walks his talk, in my opinion, and he always did. He's been a guy that's gone through many presidents, and he's neither Republican or Democrat. He's just a believer in his religion. He says, "Dennis, I want you to know I believe every word in this book is true." And I said, "I know you do." He said, "I know you're having a journey." I said, "I am on a journey, and I'm really trying. I'm learning. I'm accepting. I have a strong faith." And he said, "I understand." He said, "What you need to do is always represent through your actions what you're talking about." He said, "You understand that?" He said, "I'd rather watch a winner than hear one any day." He said, so you and I are in the self-awareness business. I said, no, no, Dr. Graham, you have 30,000 people in the arena. I'm your warm-up act. I'm only your lounge act right now. I'm doing the Seeds of Greatness because I have a book, but you're the one that they're coming to see. And he said, no, no, I just have a larger audience for the evening. They're coming from the outfield to the infield and they pray with me. And I said, I know they do. And they're having a religious experience. He said, they're having a one-time religious experience that may or may not influence the next action they take when they get home. Dennis, most of them go back to being themselves. Only they can take the action that will change them. He said, just live your life as an example of what you're talking about, and you'll be able to shut up most of the people, because all you'll have to say is, I understand what you're saying. So why don't I come and live with you for a month or two? You come and live with me for a month or two, and let's see who's an example of what they're talking about. It's so easy to preach about something. It's so easy to make your mind up, and so difficult to make room for other people's beliefs, not necessarily having to change your own to be like them, but to make room for it. And I think you and I both make room for other people's beliefs, and we listen to them and gain from them without being one way or the other and falling into one side or the other. That's why it's so important to not be full of hate and to be full of optimism, to be full of love. So when people say to me, you know, you're no Tony Robbins, I say, I understand that. I know I'm not. And they say, you know, you're no Earl Nightingale. I said, no, I know that. Earl had the most powerful, deep voice, and that Stranger Secret is one of the greatest audios of all time. And I'm no Earl Nightingale. I'm no Tony Robbins. I'm no Jim Rohn. I'm just me in my own skin, in my own belief system, but I'm trying to learn from other people to be the best example of a flawed human being as I can.
You have the greatest stories. That's one of the things I like about the new psychology of winning, is that it's been updated with all these great stories, and you have this charm as you reflect on everything. So I have a question for you, Dennis, that might be a little uncomfortable. It's at least uncomfortable for me. I have lost quite a few friends over the last few years. In fact, another one died last night. And I'm curious to know how you feel about the aging and passing process. And I'm kind of nervous to ask the question because it's kind of a bold question. But you look very healthy. You speak so profoundly and so clearly and with such wisdom. But I know that you're aware of the passing of time. And we all pass at some time. And I'm wondering, how do you feel about aging and passing at this point in your life?
You know, it's very interesting. It's taken me this long to realize how precious life is. And that's the problem. The problem is we race through it to get through it as quickly as we can to get this ethereal thing called success, only to discover that we spent almost all of our lives getting to this place that doesn't exist. It only exists in our own mind, because there's no such thing as being a success. It's only living successfully and handling whatever comes your way. So what's happened to me is I'll be 89 in June, and Warren Buffett and Betty White and anyone over 90 is a role model for me now, because I'm listening to them very carefully. And I'm listening to why they feel that they still have a lot of life to live. So I'm past the fourth quarter. So 20, 40, 60, 80. So let's say that the average length of life for a man is 80. So I'm 88 and a half. So I'm already past the fourth quarter. I'm already into the first phase of overtime, and no one has scored a touchdown or kicked a field goal yet. So I'm in the, I don't want to call it sudden death part, but I'm in overtime right now. So I'm in the last 5-minute drill of the overtime of the Super Bowl. And I'm saying to myself, oh, I just love life so much. Why didn't I realize how precious each rose is? Why didn't I notice the hummingbird? Why didn't I see that sunset? Where was I going to the airport? Why did my car drive there automatically? Why was I in such a hurry? How did I miss that? Where did my children go? I've got time today. I've got plenty of time. Now it's my great grandchildren. I have teenage great grandchildren. And I'm reflecting now that as nearly 89 years of age, and I'm listening to Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett gives away the last $85 billion of his fortune. He's given it away. Maybe keeps 100 million or so. And they asked him, isn't it about time you retired and just did what you love? And he said, I am. They said, you are retired? And he said, no, I'm doing what I love. I'm going down to see what happens. I'm in Omaha. I put my suit on. They said, do you like wearing a suit? And he says, yeah, I'm comfortable with it. It's me. I go down to see what happens. He said, I'd rather be on the playing field than a spectator. I want to be in the game rather than watching the game. I'm not watching it go by as a spectator. I'm living it now. And as I listened to him and Betty White and the other, not only octogenarians, but people in their 90s, I'm realizing that being alive is something so exquisite, so wonderful, that doesn't make me afraid of not being here. I realize that the mortal sense of me is going to be gone and perhaps even forgotten within 20 to 40 years max. So if you're looking for an edifice complex to build a monument to your own progress, forget about it. Even naming a street or a building after you won't cut it. That won't give you the immortality that you want. Only the love that those few people who will surround you in the final analysis, the people you love, your family, your friends, those are the precious gems that I'm looking forward to. And what I'm saying to myself is, if I played the regular season as best I can, if I've been an honest man, a flawed man, a learned man, and I understand that I'm as good as the best, but no better than the rest, I will be able to pass through the mortality of life, believing that it was a great ride and I did everything I could, and I may qualify for the postseason game. If I played the regular season without too many penalties, without lying or breaking the rules too often, I may make the Super Bowl in life. But I look at life as this marvelous, no timeouts, no substitutions, clock is always running. And the other thing, Joe, is this is really strange. Since I won't know when I'm not here mortally with my brain, as far as I know, I'll always be here. So even when I say goodbye to my family, I'll still say, see you soon, because I'll never know that I'll not be able to understand it. So I don't fear death, but I will say one thing. I don't know how I went from high school to now so quickly. I was in too many airports, on too many planes, going too many places, and I just would have stopped and been in the moment. So my last little take home here is, please live in the moment, but not for the moment. Being in the moment means you're fully engaged with all senses in what you're doing right now. You're in it like a child coloring, like somebody so involved that you don't even know the passage of time. You don't know it's time to eat. You don't know it's time to quit because you're engaged, sensory and engrossed. That's how I'm living every minute of my precious last few moments on the earth. And I'm saying to myself, why did it take me nearly 89 years to realize how incredibly important these moments are, to be in them rather than trying to get someplace in the future or come away from someplace in the past? Let's live in the now, projecting where we want to go and relishing the successes we've had and learning from our mistakes. I'm trying to be in the moment, Joe. And boy, I tell you, I saw, You know, if you tell me, Dennis, there'll be a sunset or there's an eclipse, I'll jump out of my chair and I'll never say maybe later or maybe someday. And when my great grandchildren call me and say, Daddy said you made money selling tapes, were they kind you wrapped around your finger or your ankle? I said, you wouldn't understand, but I'm taking time from my great grandchildren. I'm taking time from my grandchildren. Now I'm taking time from my children who are becoming senior citizens. How does it feel to have senior citizen children? How does it feel to have older grandchildren who already have children? How does it feel to have teenage great grandchildren who come to you and say, "Hi, Papa, where are we going this summer?" I said, "We're going to go someplace again where there's no cell service. So you won't be able to text. You'll have to listen to Papa tell his stories." And so my great grandchildren was saying, "Do you mean to say that we're on this boat in Alaska because there's no cell service?" I said, "That's part of it. We're in Kenya, or we're in the Sea of Cortez, and that way there's no cell service. That way you can't text. That way the umbilical cord can't be attached to your cell phone, and you're just going to have to enjoy the moments that we're spending without being in your virtual world." And that's the other thing. If I could live my life again, I would really spend more time being in that moment than trying to achieve something that I thought was the most important thing. It turned out to be the most important thing was what I was doing at the time.
Well, this moment is beyond description for me. I wrote a book called The Miracle, and I said in it, there's two kinds of miracles. There's the miracle that everybody's looking for. It's where suddenly something happens and they've been longing for it. And it happens by a surprise and it might be unexplainable. And so they go, "What was a miracle?" But the other miracle, the second miracle, I think is better. The second miracle is right now. The second miracle is every right now. I don't mean just this moment with you, which is historic in my life and historic for the Los Angeles Tribune and everybody that's watching this live. It's a historic moment. But I'm saying every moment is the miracle. And in fact, what's happening with me, just to share candidly and transparently right now with you, because I'm in such awe of you, in your career and your impact and your legacy and your new book and everything else that you do, time has slowed down for me. Very often I might be doing something and part of my brain is racing around thinking about something else, where most of me is in the moment, but not all of me. Yet this moment, because of my respect for you, has slowed everything down. So I would say 99% of me is entirely here. That's the miracle. And what I've been trying to articulate and guide people to and inspire them to see is that every single moment is the miracle. The ones that we think about all the time, they're gone. Those are dead moments. That was the past. And current science says we don't even remember those accurately. And some of the recent science says every time you remember a memory, you remember it less accurately. You keep changing your own memory. So when we long for the good old days, they weren't all that great. They weren't all that good. And then when we look forward to the future and we're imagining how it could be, it's all visual. It's all imagery. It's all unpredictable. Yes, we can create, but we create from this moment. So what my whole mission has been most recently is to bring everything to here in my own personal life as well, to not be so distracted by the shiny objects or the next opportunity or whatever is being dangled in front of me, and to be here. And what's happening for me right now is that I've been brought more clearly and concretely and anchored in this miracle of a moment because of my respect for you. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you too, Joe. And that is so important to me because this moment that we're sharing and that everyone else is takes the place of anything else that they would be doing at this moment. So there's an opportunity cost. The opportunity is, are you here? Are you doing your work and tuning in? Or are you in the moment? And if you are, I can guarantee you that this moment will alter the outcome of your life, because as a result of what you're doing now, you may reach over and pick up the phone and call somebody. Something may come in front of your vision and you might say, you know, what Joe said, or what Brian Tracy said, or what Les Brown or what Forrest said, what they said caused me to do something and take an action I would not otherwise have taken. So every moment, every decision is momentary. There's no such thing as a future decision, only a current momentary decision that impacts the rest of your life. So everything we're doing and committing to this moment has the influence to impact everything that will happen from now on. I didn't fully understand that until recently. And now I never make an assumption about anyone. I used to make assumptions. I assume that she's coming from this place. I assume that he's angry because. I'm assuming that this, and I'm assuming wrong half the time, because I have no idea where they're coming from, what just happened in their life, what's going on at home. I've been making wrong assumptions. And so I've decided that in the moment that I'm in with somebody, I'm going to try to find out what's going on, where they're coming from. It's been happening to me more this last year and these last few months. I was in solitary confinement for 9 months, 3 months, and every time I went to a skilled nursing facility, they had a COVID outbreak, and they wouldn't allow me to go out of my 9 by 12 skilled nursing room to talk to anybody. So I couldn't talk to my family. I couldn't go outside, so I had to live in this room. So I became a Navy SEAL. I got up, made my bed at 5:30, got on an exercise cycle, got dressed, took the hospital gown off. I had to completely take charge of my momentary life. And I realized that every moment that I was living there, that I was in charge of what was going to happen, because my thoughts became things. It was an incredible experience. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I wouldn't trade it, because every time I got by myself and I couldn't be with anyone, I began to go inside and look inside. And I realized that I had been chasing an illusion. And like everyone else, I'm not different from most people. I've had the beautiful homes and the cars. I've had the look and the feel and the taste, and it feels really good. It feels really good to get a standing ovation, but it feels even better to have the respect of one child or one great grandchild, to have the respect of someone who looks to you for leadership as a role model. So I just want you to know that this has been very profound for me, because I'm changing as I'm spending this time with you. And I hope I'm changing for the better, because what you've expressed has been expressed in such a way that I understand what's happening better as a result of you and I talking along the way. I understand myself and other people better. I'm learning from listening to you that I'm going to do something a little different an hour from now, a minute from now, a year from now, because of what we talked about along the way, because that's so important to drink in and to make what's happening now the tapestry of your future.
You are such an amazing being. And there's so many things I can ask you. I'm looking at your book again. I don't know if it's appropriate to hold it up. I don't want to act like an infomercial, but at the same time, go get this book. The New Psychology of Winning. I can't even tell if it's showing up. The New Psychology of Winning. Top qualities of a 21st century winner. What I want to know is, what is the takeaway you want people to get from the book? I know there's a lot in the book, so it's kind of an unfair, cruel question. I know I would be pressurized if somebody asked me something like that about one of my books, but I'm going to put your feet in the fire and say, what is a takeaway you want people to get from your new book, The New Psychology of Winning?
Well, it's a 43-year sequel. So usually when you make a Rocky movie, you have Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4. But it's taken me 43 years to do an update of the book. And I would say that the digital age creates an opportunity to have the libraries of the world in your hand. And instead of taking a selfie of you being somewhere with someone, turn your camera around and project outside and bring what's inside of you out to the world rather than trying to bring the world into you in some virtual way. That's one thing. The other thing is that sometimes technology is the enemy of intimacy. In other words, Facebook or Meta, however you want to call it, is not the same as being face to face. Not being able to touch someone on the shoulder and pat them, not being able to look someone directly in the eye across the coffee table is not quite the same as the virtual world. The virtual world is absolutely incredible, and it brings everyone in the world together in this way. I love it. It's the greatest opportunity for entrepreneurs and to get information, communicating, and peace in the world of any other way. But it won't ever take away from being there in person for someone. Being there in person for someone is the greatest gift you can give, the gift of yourself. The one thing that I would like them to take away may not have been the crescendo that I tried to put at the end of the book by just saying he loved his family or he tried to be good. It's resiliency. I finally believe that the self-esteem and the self-respect and the responsibility and the focus goals, those are all critically important. But being able to handle the roller coaster of life, there are going to become ups and downs. There are going to become the worst time of your life, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's loss of a job, a loved one. You are going to go through very difficult times. And the main purpose of the book is to show you that the people who are resilient, who can bounce back, who treat failure as fertilizer, they don't like it, they don't want to be around it, but it's a learning experience. To never accept failure as a person, it's an event, and it's a very powerful, emotional, stopping event. At the worst of times, we have to be at our very best. You have to bring out the very best of you when things are not going well, because when they're going well, you coast. When you're going well, you coast downhill, but you can't coast uphill. But life is a climb, and it's always got this valley and peak and valley and peak. Being resilient, being able to handle the setbacks, being able to turn failure into a learning experience, to me is the key. And I hope they'll take away from the new psychology of winning that it's all about the way you handle what's happening. Things work out best for the people that make the best of the way things work out.
Dennis, I am beyond grateful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so open. Thank you for including me in this. Thank you for all the nice things you've said to me. Thank you for all the work that you've done that touched me without you knowing it touched me. Thank you for your new book, which I'm absolutely loving. And I do want to sit with you and have our meal or our coffee or whatever we do so we can talk one-on-one for as long as we both want to. I am grateful. Thank everybody here for putting this together. Dennis, I can't say enough, and I'm about to cry. So somebody get me off stage. Thank you.
All I can say to you is thank you, Joe, because I'm at a loss for words, which is very seldom happens to me as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Joe and Dennis, you all, the way that you opened your heart and just shared these moments, including and especially the tears, the way that real energy becomes physical and expresses itself is so beautiful and is really the heart of what is behind this whole event, and honoring each of you and honoring Dennis in sharing conversations about what it is to win today. And Joe, we're getting amazing feedback. Dennis, amazing feedback. So thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you for holding up the book. And on that note, if you're, because Dennis will never do it, right? I know, but so thank you. So on that note, if you haven't checked out The New Psychology of Winning, get that book at some point, but stay with us now. if you're watching live and you haven't gone to wintour21.com, that's where you can get a free backstage pass. So what does that mean? That means you get daily emails that tell you who's coming on next and when. You get replay recaps, you get gifts from our speakers, and you get invited to our green room, which is the Facebook blue room, I guess. So please share if this is valuable. Joe and Dennis shared it so much. It really is who we associate ourselves with. That, oh yes, and if you're already with us and you're in, you can go to wintourvip.com to get your VIP ticket. It's $97. You get a one-on private room Zoom with Dennis. We're going to Q&A, and you get to ask your questions. We'll also have other surprise speakers in different rooms beyond that. So please do that if you want that intimacy. So who we associate ourselves with is everything. You guys sharing this conversation publicly is so good for all of us, because we get to read your materials, we get to learn from you, listen to things, go to your workshops, but to sit in the room while you all talk about life and what you're thinking and what you appreciate about one another, it opens another level of learning that is just transcendent. May you both be blessed. And those of you that are here, I want you to go into the Facebook group and put your 3 core takeaways. You know, next time you're in there, what did you learn here? You can put it in these comments. What did you learn that you're going to apply? So we have a little extra time. Les is running a little bit late. There was a miscommunication. So Dr. Joe, you're welcome to stay with us some more if you'd like. I know you had questions. You also have a scheduled life. Dennis, it's such a privilege and pleasure to have you.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Adora. And thank you, Dr. Joe Vitale and Denis Waitley. And wow, people have been from all around the world, have registered for this event, and that was one of the most emotional and powerful segments we've ever had on the many different programs that we've had. And I'm just going to ask Joe to stick around for a few more minutes, because I've worked in Hollywood in the past, and I have friends that are professional athletes, and one thing I know is that when a professional athlete is in the zone, you don't take him out of the game. And the two of you are in the zone right now, and so to call a timeout and to say, let's just, end this momentum would not be fair. And so I'm going to step back and allow the two of you to continue talking for at least a few more minutes, Dr. Joe, until you gracefully bow out, because the two of you are in the zone and you guys are passing. This is John Stockton and Karl Malone in the zone together. So we're not going to take the two of you out of the game. We're gonna change history and actually beat the Bulls. So we're gonna step back and let the two of you pick up where we left off for the next few minutes. Appreciate you too. Dr. Joe Vitale, living legend. Denis Waitley, you're tuning into the new Psychology of Winning Tour International, and let's just let the two of them have a natural, free-flowing conversation. Microphone is yours, gentlemen.
This is amazing, Dennis. We get overtime. I can't, this is amazing. In your book, there was a phrase that I loved, and you talked about living in prime time. And I reflected over my life, and I thought there were so many times when I found the time to write books before I was published, before I had any name, there was no success, all of that, by turning off the TV, not doing what other people were doing, not going out when other people went out, didn't have the money anyway. But those hours that the TV executives call prime time, that's when they air the primetime shows, is where I found I could get things done. I didn't call it primetime living because I didn't think of the phrase. I think it's very clever, but you have it in the book. So do you want to talk about where that came from and what you think about it?
Oh, Joe, that's so important. Boy, did I ever blow that prime time for a number of years. When I think back of all the times that I watched Flamingo Road, Dallas, Dynasty, sitcoms, I watched so many shows to get away from the monotony that I was calling life. So I was going to work, earning my bread, watching TV, going to bed, sunrise, sunset, year to year. Before I knew it, winter was here. Prime time is 6 to 11 p.m. or 6 to 10 p.m. And it's very important because the commercials cost the most, except during the Super Bowl. But during the Super Bowl, they're more than $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million a minute. Why would anyone pay $3 million for a minute of your viewing time? Because it works. What do you mean? Well, observation, imitation, repetition, internalization, realization, you repeat messages and the messages flow in. And, oh, well, I don't pay any attention to those. Oh, no? Then what is your buy decision based on? It's based on familiarity. It's based on branding. So we're branding ourselves. And I look at branding, watching TV, as being branded with a hot poker. So it has the, shall we say, commercial brand on my body. But here's what happens. During that time, when I watched everyone else making money, having fun in their profession, I realized that what most of us do is spend our time tension relieving instead of goal achieving. When you stop to think of it, the only time we have to work on ourselves is evenings and weekends. But if you're a woman, you don't even have that because you're so busy taking care of multitasking. A woman has to multitask much more than a man. I don't think men are capable of multitasking. We're so focused on doing one thing at a time that we can't do all these things at one time. But long story short here, prime time should be used to do the things you want to do with your career and the people in your life. That's what prime time is. You should be reading. You should be spending time with family. You should spend prime time with those you care about. You should reach over and pick up the phone during prime time. You should be reading a book, but most of all, you should be doing what you want to do in the future in prime time. Lee Trevino, the old golfer, said to me, Dennis, as long as there's daylight, there's golf balls to be hit. I know about all that positive thinking stuff, but I need to practice my correct swing. I need to be doing rather than stewing and viewing. I need to be doing instead of viewing. Well, of course you do. So why would you ever watch other people making money, having fun in their profession to keep their ratings up, to keep them making the most money so that you can watch them enjoying their marvelous celebrity lives? Why? Because vicariously we're living through their dreams through watching these superstars. Sure, I watch a little football. Sure, I watch basketball. Sure, I like a comedy show. Sure, I like a musical composition. Sure, I love to see art. I love all that. But you can get rid of that in an hour or so. But you need to be spending your evenings and weekends on you, because the rest of the time we're solving other people's problems. We're making money to eat by solving other people's problems. And only when we spend time on us, on our intimate family. And so I encourage all of you to put in your calendar IRS meeting, and put as many personal goals in your calendar as you have business goals. And when people ask you, well, why can't you be with me? Well, why can't you take my call? Well, why can't you be at this meeting? You say, IRS meeting. And they go, oh my gosh, you mean you're being audited? And you say, yes, it's an intimate relations schedule. And they go, oh, but we have a tendency to put off the things that are really good for us and to do the things that are urgent. We need to give up the urgent for the important. So live in prime time rather than watch in prime time. I guarantee you your life will turn around if you turn off the tube and turn on the one inside your brain.
Absolutely.
I have to ask the question because I know Mo
Right.
or Adora is going to take me out right now.
Well, you. Oh God.
No, we're actually going to keep you, Dr. Joe Vitale. Speaking of prime time, we told you all around the world, to all the folks that registered, that this is a historical moment in the personal development arena where we are accumulating living legends in the same time in the same place. So we're going to actually ask Dr. Joe Vitale to stick around while we bring in a third living legend as part of our Living Legends series to join this conversation. And we're going to continue to allow these living legends and these incredible thought leaders to have natural conversations, because we know that this is something so unique and so special. And I want to thank the incredible team behind the scenes at the LA Tribune for helping make this possible, Dr. Joe Vitale and Denis Waitley. And with that, we're going to add a third thought leader. We're going to step back and allow the three of you gentlemen, three living legends from different generations that have impacted tens of millions of folks. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and bring in the next thought leader, part of this incredible program, Les Brown, who is live and direct with us. Welcome.
We need to say a little bit more about this, because Dr. Les Brown, when you had Denis Waitley in your mastermind, something magical happened. You guys were talking, and before we knew it, you were both crying, just like Dr. Joe and Denis were a few minutes ago, and our hearts opened. And I have to say that that moment inspired this event. And we thought, okay, how can we put together the new Psychology of Winning book tour and have more of these conversations between Denis and his friends, colleagues, and other up-and-coming thought leaders. So thank you so much for your presence and being here with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here today, because I am humbled. I remember as a person who was looking for a way out of my situation, how can I begin to create a new reality for myself? And being born in poverty in Miami, Florida, called Liberty City, an abandoned building on a floor, being labeled educable, mentally retarded, and put back from the 5th grade to the 4th grade and failing again in the 8th grade. And receiving a gift called the Psychology of Winning. Come on now. That made a difference for me. Come on now. People create habits, and habits create futures. That Einstein said that genius is the capacity to make the complicated simple. And I know no speaker on the planet that can talk, and there are several sermons, and whatever he says, whatsoever he says, is just so potent, and that you have to wait. So wait a minute, hold on, time out, slow down just a little bit. It's a download. You can't teach this. Some things are taught and some things are caught. It's a download. And I listened to his voice so many times, and I read the book, The Psychology of Winning, so many times. And it created a shift in my thinking and how I saw myself. And I think that people who get this book, and I know because I've gone through it now, this is my 3rd time around, that it will begin to allow you to look at your life in and out of the pandemic, and begin to get an expanded vision of yourself beyond your mental conditioning. It gives you the power and the tools to convert the adversities in your life to your advantage and to live life on your terms. And so I'm so thankful. I'm humbled just to be here with Dr. Joe. He's a bad dude too now. Come on, don't sleep him now. He's a bad dude up in here. I'm humbled. And so I'm just humbled to be here in the conversation, and to say thank you. Thank you, Dr. Denis Waitley. Thank you to my children.
First of all, I have to say, I want that vest. So that vest you're wearing that matches your tie, I like that. And I want one. I'm wearing this drab gray, Olympic sweatshirt with a little Nike thing on it. And I want that orange. I want that look. I want to be able to pop out a little more, because I'm so subdued. I have this subdued voice and this subdued, me. I'm the biggest introvert of all the speakers. In fact, when I finish speaking, I usually go out the back to make sure I don't have to stick around and say something, because everything I know I've said in about 30 minutes, and I don't have that much more to add. And I'm not being, I'm not being self-deprecating. I'm kind of like Bob Newhart. I have a Bob Newhart humor. I like to make fun of myself so that I don't think too much of myself, so that I don't develop an ego. But Les, I'm telling you, you make me like a Roman candle. You make me really come up out of my chair and say, let's do it. Let's do it right now. And you give me the energy. And I think, watching you as I have through the years and seeing your family, I said, wow, this guy has had an influence not only on millions of lives, but he's created in his family this same kind of dynamism that you have. And you have this way about you. When I've seen you at these big rallies and the people come up afterwards and the people are hanging on every word, you have a way of telling it like it is. And sure, simple-minded people like me can say simple things, but you say some pretty profound things in a way that people grab onto it. So this is not a happy party where we're patting each other on the back. The reason I'm here with you is I want to edify everyone in the personal development industry. I think that everyone is a superstar and that no one is any better than any. We're just different. And we express ourselves in different ways, but we're all doing the same thing. We're trying to give people the courage to live up to the optimism, the potential that they already have. The uncut gemstone is already there. It's just waiting for you to cut and polish. And Les, man, when you said it, habits are submarines. They run silent and deep. I mean, they go from cobwebs into cables to strengthen or shackle your life. In fact, a habit is a comfortable bed. They're easy to get into and very difficult to get out of. And the change of habits become too strong, finally, to break them. So we have to replace them, and it takes time. It takes time and listening to Joe and to you and to all of our colleagues. But Les, this time we have together, I want to hear the Les Brown version of winning. I already know my version, but I need more of yours to help me go forward at a time in my life that things have a temporary inconvenience. Right now I'm only on liquids. I can't taste anything that I put in my mouth. So everything is like paste. So I'm on a liquid diet. I can't taste. Oh, but I remember how exquisite things taste. And until you lose your taste, you don't think about your taste. Until you lose your ability to, shall we say, swallow whole food, you don't think about whole food. I'm watching commercials in what few television programs I watch, which aren't very many. I watch Discover and National Geographic and some sporting events. But when I do tune into a commercial, I don't even have any saliva. So I can't salivate like Pavlov's dogs. So I have no saliva, I have no taste, and a little bit of smell. So I can smell a rose, I can smell a cup of coffee, but I can't taste it. But oh, do I remember how everything tasted and smelled, which is to say, until you lose it, you don't appreciate what you had when you had it. Health, life, and money are all the same. They do you no good until you're depleted from them and you realize how important they were that you didn't realize until you took them for granted. And then you lost them and said, oh, if I can only get back my taste, if I can only get back my swallowing, if I can only get back my ability to have saliva. I cannot eat any piece of solid food today. I have to wash it down. I should be washing myself down right now, but Les, I want to hear from you. And Joe and I both want to hear from you. We heard from each other, but you're in the hot seat. And I'm ready for some Les Brownism coming right my way, because I want to live to be 100, and you're my way.
Well, first of all, to recap something that you said, that habits are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. And that's real. I'm on a liquid diet as well. And today I was recognized by Cancer Centers of America for being the longest living fourth stage cancer conqueror with prostate cancer. My PSA was 2,400 when they diagnosed me. 1 to 4 is normal, as you know. And they were asking me, what do you attribute to your survival? And because I could have given up. But there's something that you talked about that I learned in the psychology of winning, about the power of focus. That the reason they call this the distraction economy is that life is so noisy. We got the pandemic. We have to look at ourselves in and out of the pandemic. We got this thing called life that we have to deal with. We have family members and friends and people we care about. And we have to address what Viktor Frankl said, that we are facing unavoidable suffering, that all of us are either in a problem or just left one or headed toward one.
That's right. That's right.
And so how do you maintain and develop the mental bandwidth to maintain sanity in an insane world? I deal with that. And so focus is major on that, because what I had to do when I started reading the psychology of winning, not focus where I was, I had to hold a vision of where I was going. What was I going to do with that? Who is it I had to be? I had, my favorite book says, if a man is to gain his life, he must lose his life. And so I knew that I had to die who I'd been to give birth to who I was to become. And your words, that book, took me to a place in myself that I could not go by myself. And so what I believe that's more important now than ever, above and beyond dealing with an illness that we have the ability to conquer and to thrive and to live a life of contribution, to live a life that will outlive us. And you most certainly are a legend, is to be focused on what is it we want to do with the time that we have left. The journey that got us here is longer than the journey that we have left. We all have an expiration date, but at this stage of our lives, you and I, we are grave robbers. The grave of our talents, of our dreams, of our ability. We still got some juice left. I'm 77, and how old are you now?
I'll be 89 in June.
See, that's what I'm shooting for. Look out, somebody. Well, let me tell you something. Up in here. So that to me is focusing on who is it we have to be? How is it we have to reinvent ourselves, to challenge ourselves, to do like what Horace Mann said, we should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind. As Leo Tolstoy said, who's a Russian author, he said, as I face inevitable death, what in the meaning and purpose of my life that will not be undone or destroyed when I'm gone? And I believe that the work that you have been doing and Joe has been doing and the work that we have ahead of us will not be undone or destroyed, that we're planting seeds for trees that we will not sit under the shade of, and impacting generations yet unborn, and continuing to keep it moving, continuing to allow ourselves to be about our Father's business, to do the greater work. Wow. That to me, as we focus on that, is so exciting about the things that we're doing right now. I love it. I tell you, man, when I had the opportunity for us to interview, and you have such an arrogance about you. You in the hospital that refused to put on the pajamas they gave you. You got up and got fully dressed. I said, "Oh hell no, he did not." Yes, he got
Wow.
dressed. And he
Ladies and
said,
gentlemen, the
"Oh."
legendary Les Brown is in the house. And of course, this is the new Psychology of Winning tour, where we are bringing together the most incredible thought leaders of a multitude of generations to create the most incredible lineup. I have been told that the lineup we have for this event is the most incredible in the history of this industry. And I would agree with that. And we are going to give an opportunity for Dr. Joe Vitale to address these two living legends and just share his thoughts and on what an impact Les Brown and Denis Waitley have made for you, Dr. Joe, and for the industry as a whole, and your closing thoughts and your closing statements before we all step back and allow Denis and Les to have a private conversation that's public. But Joe, Dr. Joe, we want to give you an opportunity to address these two gentlemen. What has Les Brown, what has Denis Waitley meant for the world, for the industry, and for you personally? Dr. Joe Vitale, please.
Well, I don't have the words for it, which sounds ironic for an author of quite a few books to say, hey, I don't know how to say this. But both of these men have been guiding lights in a world that has been largely dark. We've gone through tough times. People are still going through tough times. And I know that for somebody like me, I'm the youngest out of these legends here. I turn to their books. I turn to their, for Denis, it was the cassettes way back then, and listen to this material, which fortified me, which gave me hope, which helped me get through the dark nights of the soul, not a dark night, dark nights for a very, very long period. And now they're still doing it. They're still doing it. It's also ironic that in both of these cases, I've only had about 30 seconds with each person. With Denis Waitley, we already talked about in the movie premiere, and I stood on the stairway and he said a nice thing to me and I was speechless. I walked in the walls for the rest of the evening because I couldn't talk to anybody, but I didn't get to spend any time with him. And I don't know if Les remembers or not, but I had 30 seconds with him on a phone call many years ago where a mutual friend called him up, handed me the phone and said, hey, this is Les Brown, say hi. And I said hi to Les, but I didn't know what to say. and before you know it, I was like, well, have a great day, and hung up. So I felt embarrassed by in both of those instances. I didn't get to actually elongate the experience. But what I'm saying now is these are legends that have been lights to me, that are still lights to me, and they're still lights to the rest of the world. I'm in awe that I am here. I am in their presence, and I am honored, humbled, and I'm going to make a polite exit out because they should really have the stage.
Thank you, Joe. You mean a lot to me, and we're going to spend some time together.
Awesome. I look forward to
that. I'd like to share in that as well. Please don't be stingy.
You got it. You guys have fun. Thanks for the honor of having me here.
Thank you, Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Dr. Joe Vitale. Until next time. And with that, Adora, how do you feel so far about this incredible historical event right here on the Los Angeles Tribune? Before you and I step back and allow these two gentlemen to have a private, public conversation. Adora, how do you feel so far?
Oh, I'm just in tears. This is leadership at its finest and generosity at its finest. You allowing us to share in your heartfelt conversations. And we all know vibrationally, we have the opportunity to open our hearts and receive this in, and it fortifies, to use Dr. Joe's words, who we become. So just thank you so much.